first time?
You're new here, right?
Someday, somewhere, I'll make a difference.
It's a mockery.
I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
The year is 2023. The name of the podcast, Babylon 5, for the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time. Not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Babylon 5 Season 3 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 Season 3 for the very first time. Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek podcasters watching this show, this season, this episode for the very first time. And here we have decided to apply that lens that we've gained as Star Trek podcasters, where we overanalyze everything and look for those deep messages and meanings that are replete. We're applying that here to Babylon 5, and we're seeing how much do we just absolutely love this series.
And while this is not a podcast about Star Trek, Brent and I are Star Trek podcasters and fans. So those references are going to show up from time to time. So one of the games that we play here on Babylon 5 for the first time is the Rule of 3. That means we each get 3 references to Star Trek during the entire episode.
That's it. 3. Uno, dos, tres. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
You know, Brent, we have a YouTube channel. It's pretty cool.
I do know that, yeah.
A lot of great people in the community there. And one of them, somebody on YouTube, John Schaefer, left this really cool comment a while ago with a dream guest star pairing that sadly we never got, but I would be all in for. Sarah Douglas and Louise Fletcher are 2 of my favorite actresses when it comes to villainy, since they do it so well. And I would have loved to have seen them play off of each other in a movie or another sci-fi series before Louise passed. Deathwalker and Kai Wynn.
Yeah.
Face to face.
If I can add to that, what is her name? She played Dolores Umbridge in the Harry Potter franchise.
Yeah, and she's the queen, and that was it, the crown.
She eventually was. No, but I'm talking play that sugary sweet evil lady with Louise Fletcher as Kai Wynn and Sarah Douglas. Deathwalker is probably the seminal one. I still, you know who I think, what I think of when I see her picture, because Deathwalker obviously was under all the makeup, the bad girl from the Superman 2 movie.
Superman
I think
2.
It is. Yeah.
With
That's who I still see with her. That could be cool.
Yeah.
That could be cool. Hey, John, thanks for commenting. I'm sure John Schaefer is a relatively common name. I know a couple John Schaefers. If you happen to be the guy that I know, like in real life, hit me a text or shoot me something and let me know you're watching, because that's awesome. But if you're not the John Schaefer that I know in real life, you're still awesome. And thanks for watching and listening.
Well, I'm going to stick on YouTube for the next one. This one's kind of long, but I think it's also a really important one. Someone left this comment on one of the Brent Watches videos a while ago.
Hey, Brent Watches, that's a cool series.
It's going to say, if you're not watching Brent Watches, you are missing out on a huge aspect of what happens here at Babylon 5 for the first time.
And by the way, that guy's an idiot over there. So
seriously,
watch at your own peril.
Yeah. It's like he doesn't even understand how, sci-fi and science work.
He doesn't know what this show is about. Seriously. Gosh.
So I think this is Star Trek. Come on. Well, Justin Marshall says, I know I'm probably going to get some flack for this comment, but just some thoughts I had as I read through the comments here. There are a lot of them saying how Brent will understand or better appreciate this episode in a season or 2, or how it will make more sense as the plot develops. Aside from this being a borderline spoiler, I think it misses the point of this podcast. I think of this podcast in the same way as Mission Log, how they don't jump the Star Trek timeline in their show. Brent can only react to what he's seen so far. It would make no sense if at the end of each reaction, he just talked about how he's excited to see how the episode links up in the future and didn't evaluate it on its own standing. First-time viewers did not know what was coming, and this podcast is meant to mimic that experience. I also think constantly telling them why each episode will appear so much better in a season or 2 is overhyping things and bound to lead to letdown. #season 2. Just my opinion, but I think it is far better to let those reflections come in time and not jump the timeline in the comments. What made Babylon 5 such an amazing show for me was that I did not know how much would link together or what episodes would matter more in a few seasons the first time I watched it. It was an amazing and complete surprise to me when it happened, and I think we should be careful to not spoil that for the hosts.
Yeah, Justin, thank you so much for that comment. Here's what I really like about that, because we're right here at the start of a new season. There's bound to be some things here in this season that are going to happen that we're like, okay, we're here. We're at the midway point of the show. And there's bound to be some things that are maybe a little overhyped. I'm just guessing. I don't know. We've watched one episode so far. For people out there that are listening to this part, like I've started saying this, I don't know, somewhere, I think it might've been relatively early in season 2, at least halfway. Don't rob us of the rewatch experience either.
Yeah. Because
the rewatch experience is where we sit back. Now we know what's going to happen. And now we make those connections. What we've always invited you guys to do is to sit back, laugh at us, calculate. If you want to have a conversation with it, we have a Discord server that Jeff and I aren't allowed onto.
Right.
So you guys can go have all those conversations and say, oh, just wait till they see this and it connects there. Do you think, have all those conversations over there? Discord, patreon.com/Babylon
5 first, right?
That's number 5 word first.
Yep.
But you guys go over there and check that out.
Well, and let me be really clear about it too. The fun in the community comes from having a conversation about us as first-time viewers. And just like Brent said, there's a whole other community on our Patreon, on our Discord server there. Dive in, right? Rip us apart, rip us to shreds, laugh at us, make fun of us, get excited about a thing. You get to do all that kind of stuff, but don't ruin it for us. We are,
and not just us, but you and the listeners and everybody, because this is all the experience together. This is Jeff and I's experience, but we know that so many of you guys are doing this with us.
Exactly, and it's so cool. And I think you get to hold on to that thing. So in the late season 4, into season 5 or whatever, and we get to go on and be like, kind of like the when Lita Alexander showed up, about a month ago, and I was like, hey, so a couple of you people out there, I said some not cool things to. Matthew Ignash being one on Twitter. Yeah, you were kind of right about that Lita thing.
Jeff, we said this. I don't think we've said this particular thing recently. I am so grateful for everyone who takes the time to comment and send us a message. I am that much more grateful for those of you out there. I'm going to look you in the eye, YouTube, and right in the ear, podcast people. Thank you for helping protect Jeff and I through this show. Thank you for helping keep us spoiler free. Thank you for keeping the integrity of this show fully intact. You guys rock. Everybody else who leaves comments, you guys rock too. But those of you who really, really take up the banner for this, much love.
Heck yes.
So Jeff, we like our comments. You know what else we like? We like the games. We do
love our games.
We love our Rule of 3 game. We also love the game where we get to the end of the episode and we predict what next week's episode is going to be about, based solely on title alone. Never having seen the episode before, not watching previews, not reading descriptions, not even looking at thumbnails if we can help it. And last week, we made 2 guesses. Now, one we're not going to be able to talk about until we get much further down the line. That one was, what do we think season 3 is going to be? What does season 3 entail? What's that going to be about? But we did make a guess at what this particular episode was going to be about. Matters of Honor. And this is the part of the show where we revisit that idea and see just how close we were now that we've actually seen the episode. So, Jeff, do you remember what you said Matters of Honor was supposed to be about?
I do. In the fall of night, right, Ivanova gave Sheridan this really nice, beautifully wrapped Christmas gift. He opened it up. It was a piece of the Black Star, the Minbari ship that he was responsible for blowing up. I was pretty sure that was going to offend some Minbari and would eventually put that whole Star Killer Sheridan thing to rest. So I was off by quite a bit, unless you want to count the opposite of the Black Star as points, but I don't think that I will. What about you? Do you remember what you guessed?
Reach over here and pick up this this metal round object that sits upon my head sometimes. It's gotten a little dusty over the last couple weeks. Pardon me while I grab it.
Oh, okay.
And I put it right back on my head because what I said was this was going to be an episode about Londo grappling with his position of what he has to do and breaking his alliance with the shadows. That's what I said. Now, that may not have been all that this episode was about, but that was a significant portion of this episode. And I also said Jakar would be building his resistance. That's what I said. I don't know how many points you want to give me for that one, how much credit I get, but
you get some.
I think I hit that one pretty good, though. And I think that was also another read the tea leaves. It's got to happen. Eventually, it's going to be right.
Yeah.
You keep saying this episode's about the Great Egg. Eventually, we're going to get to another Great Egg episode, right?
And if we don't, I'm going to be furious. I will write some very sternly worded letters.
Anyway, so Jeff, that's what we discussed. We thought that this was going to be about. But for those people who are playing along with us at home, people maybe that didn't watch this episode before coming into listening to this show, or maybe it's just been a while since they've seen it, or maybe they didn't watch this at all and they're just joining us for the podcast for whatever reason, which they're definitely welcome to do that. Jeff, tell us what Matters of Honor was actually about.
Well, we're just a few days after the devastating impacts of the fall of night. Little CGI dudes are floating in space, piecing the station back together. In the garden, Sheridan meets up with Kosh, asking all the questions that we've had burning for the last 2 weeks, because we had the recap in between. Why me? Why save me? We get more words out of Kosh than his cumulative total over the last 2 seasons, but he still basically says the same things. I'm a mystery, and if I'm frustrating you, good. After that, Sheridan and Ivanova greet one of the most reasonable Earth Force people ever, an Earth Force Special Intelligence officer that served on the Xindi Council. Yeah, I think we still count guest stars. I don't know. Well, either way, his name's Ndawi, and he's here to talk with the ambassadors about the mysterious ship that was captured by gun footage and aired on ISN. He wants to know what they know about it. Nobody from Earth recognizes it. Delenn says that she's never seen it before, but that seems a little fishy. Londo says that he saw it in a dream, telling Ndawi that he saw so many of them that they blocked out the sun. And Jakar spills the beans. Ndawi asks him about it, and Jakar pulls out his Book of Jaquan, along with some pamphlets and other reading materials, asking if Ndawi has a few moments to talk about his Lord and Savior, the dude who wrote about the shadows. And speaking of shadows, Darth Londo is ready to break up with him. He's gotten all he wants out of this relationship and feels like the Centauri can handle it now. Morden's cool with it, but just they want to figure out how they're going to handle visitation with the kids, who gets to keep which friends, and who gets to keep the house. Morden's got a PowerPoint ready, and he shares it with Londo. Ugh, breakups can get so messy. Really, he's not asking for that much. He just wants to ensure the Centauri don't cross some line in space and that they capture a Drazi homeworld or a Drazi world for the shadows, which Londo doesn't need to worry his pretty little Vidal Sassoon head about at all. You see, Morden has already decided who gets to keep Lord Rifa as a friend, and it's not Londo. He's already arranged for the attack on this planet. I mean, why he would want Zagros 7, though? That's a mystery. Or is it? Earlier in the episode, we saw Drazi smuggling a smaller ship off of a planet that we literally just learned is Zagros 7. On that little ship, one of the new faces in the opening credits is Marcus the Ranger. The other new face that we get in the opening credits is Zach Allen, Kaniki. He made it. He made it to the main credits. Well, the Drazi helped Marcus get off the planet so that he could let Sheridan and Delenn know that the Ranger training facility there is in danger. Delenn, Lanier, and Marcus beat up some thugs in Down Below. It is super awesome. And after all that, they get Sheridan and Ivanova, and they sneak off to the planet. But on the way, they transfer to a new ship, a very, very visually clearly Minbari ship that apparently doesn't look like a Minbari ship at all, because I guess it has some Vorlon tech on it too. It's called the White Star, and it's meant for Sheridan and his crew to use against the shadows. And it is a beast. It's big, super fast, can open jump points, and has a ton of firepower. Oh, and it has artificial gravity. We see some of the rifts in the Grey Council who don't know about this ship. as its crew is all from the religious caste. Timing is totally on their side. They get to Zagros 7 and start clearing out a whole bunch of mines so that the Rangers can escape. Just as they're about to finish, a shadow ship pops into space. Sheridan plays his cards close to his vest as they engage the shadow. He doesn't want him to know anything about this new ship. He digs deep into his toolbox as he fights them. He escapes into a jump gate, immediately followed by the shadow. He brings the White Star out of hyperspace at the deserted and looted Markhab homeworld, and just as the shadow emerges, he opens a jump point in the jump gate, causing a massive explosion. What a bonehead maneuver. Well, it blows the shadow to bits and allows them to return to the station, leaving the White Star somewhere? I'm sure it's safe, I guess. Well, Sheridan pulls Ivanova, Garibaldi, Franklin, Delenn, and Marcus into the observation lounge, the meeting room, and forms a war council. These are the people that he trusts and that know about the shadows and the Rangers, which apparently includes Ivanova because Ivanova is always right. They're going to meet every 2 weeks with no ground rules, except the ground rule that this is going to be a psychologically safe place where anybody can say anything, especially if it has to do with the shadows. Oh, and do you remember that really cool Earth Force guy, Ndawi? Well, he reports back to a senator on Earth, and he gives her his report. He says that nobody knows anything outside of some super old myths and legends. He leaves, and a Psycop walks in, along with Morden. The senator assures him that nobody that really matters knows anything about the shadows. Their secret is still safe. The Psycop wants to leverage this to do more evil things to Earth citizens, and everybody seems cool with it. And Brent, we were right. We've been right all along. Psycor is totally working with the shadows. What was your reaction to Matters of Honor?
Jeff, I got to tell you, I enjoyed this as it's hard to call this a season premiere because it didn't feel like a big monumental season premiere. It just felt like the next episode after the Fall of Night, which may sound a little weird, like as a podcaster, but in this day and age of, you set up this super big season finale and then you have this super big season premiere. This was a little bit of a breath of fresh air to just be like, let's move into the next. We introduced a new cast member, which I don't know about you, Jeff. I did watch the opening to the show.
I did as well.
This guy's in the credits. Hopefully we see him more than 6 times. I immediately like this new guy, Marcus, 1,000 times more than I liked Keffer.
I have a huge problem with Marcus, though, and it has nothing to do with Marcus. It has everything to do with Jason Carter, the actor who plays him.
Oh, yeah?
Do you know what he was in? I think it was just before this role. So he had a recurring role on Beverly Hills 90210.
And he broke up with the girl that you had a crush on in high school.
No. So he played a character named Roy Randolph, and he directed a play at the California University that they all went to after high school. Brenda Walsh got the part, and everybody, even Brandon and Kelly and everybody, were convinced that she had slept with this Roy Robinson, which frankly, did you see the dude? Could you blame her if she did? That guy, looks a bit of all right. But yeah, they all thought that she slept with him to get the part, but she didn't. She actually earned it. So he had a little run. And so when I first saw him, I was just like, is that Roy Randolph? Oh my God, yes it is. And yes, that was an immediate trigger for me. I love 90210. I'll let you continue with your thoughts.
I've never pegged you for a 90210 kind of guy, but hey, to each their own.
It's our next podcast.
I'll be if I could summarize Marcus Cole, I think is the character's name. This guy looks like what Viggo Mortensen based Aragorn on, or Aragorn, whatever his name is, from Lord. Like when he did the Lord of the Rings, like 5 years after this show came out, this is like the character he based him on. It's like this dude could have been his like body stand-in while they were filming Lord of the Rings.
Totally.
That's just totally is the vibe. They're both Rangers. It's just the vibe he gives off. But I enjoy this. I said a while ago, I remember, it was the season 2 premiere, Jeff, when the show opens up on the Agamemnon, Sheridan's old ship. Mm-hmm. And I said on the Brent Watches episode then, And I'll say, you know, if there's something that I've learned about sci-fi, it's when a based or a station-based crew gets a ship, things tend to start getting really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not what happened last season. I got really excited that would be it. If this White Star is going to hang around and this is the ship they now go use to do some stuff, which it sounds like it's going to be, buckle in. This ship looks dope. It's got artificial gravity, which none other Earth Force ship has. They got to still do the spinny thing. It can make its own jump point, even though it's really small. It apparently has like supercharged weapons. It's probably got like a souped up turbo engine in it as well. It's got its own like staff of people, like, you know, they'll learn our language. I'm going to wait for that episode. That's probably like episode 15 in season 3, where they start talking to Sheridan and Ivanova. Like somebody's saying something and they're talking about them. They like just chime in, or they're like, oh, you understood what we just said. Like, it's going to be that sort of a deal. And they're like, well, we were watching your lips move and we learned your language. So here we are, because we're really smart.
We learned your language just about as fast as it took Ivanova to learn how to use the ship's systems.
Right. Well, you know, all she had to do was just watch the videos of the people, you know.
This Galaxy Quest, the whole thing. I did like, too, how they Sheridan's blown away with the White Star. This thing's amazing. What else can this ship do? And Delenn's like, all in good time. Yeah. Which I read as being, we'll let you know as the plot demands it.
We're not sure yet, but we'll tell you as the show goes on. I loved Londo doing exactly what I said. It is time for him to break it off with the Shadows. Londo is still bad. Yeah. He is still evil. I have a new theory about Londo, Jeff.
Okay.
That I need to save every Star Trek reference that I have for.
Wow. Okay.
But we'll, maybe not all of them, but don't let me get out of here without asking you about that. I think it's super clear, and we just need to have that conversation at this point. I loved the whole thing where they carried over seeing the ship and going, what is it? What is it? And that this guy was just sent out. But yeah, Morden's there and the Psychops are there. I have a new theory about Psychor and what they're doing, and we'll talk about that. Like, I just enjoyed this is what the episode need. Like, this is what I was looking for. It doesn't have to be bang, 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 bang every single episode. It doesn't even have to be move the plot super far forward every single episode, but just take those steps as we go through. And that's what this episode felt like it did for me. Those are my overall thoughts on the season opener. Jeff, how about you?
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. Well, this is my favorite season opener so far, right? Midnight on the Firing Line, not a fantastic episode. Points of Departure was a great episode. It was really good, but it existed to show us who John Sheridan was. And that's cool. This was the first time when it's like, hey, we're making some really good TV here, and we've got a story that's rocking and rolling, and we're going to keep letting it rock and roll. We're not going to do, because I feel like what season 2 did, and here I am describing how I like this episode based on the issues I had with the beginning of the second season, but I think the comparison is so important because that first part of the second season was like, hey, we got to introduce you to this new guy, and then we're going to remind you of some things that we probably should have spent more time on in the first season, but we didn't for whatever reason, so now we're going to dwell on it for like 6 episodes when it should have been like 2 or 3 and keep going. This one literally was, like you said, we're just going to keep going. Things are established. Things are moving. nothing was jarring. It just felt like the natural progression. But what I did like about this one, this didn't have the big bang bang of a season opener, but this had a cinematic feel, this episode did, that I haven't experienced yet. Some of it might have been lighting a little bit here and there, but I think the pacing and the way that they moved the episode out, it felt longer than 43 minutes, but not in the way of like, oh my God, is this episode over yet? Like in the way of like, how are we only 20 minutes in? There's so much that's going on at a comfortable pace through this. Now, I thought this was really good, but I did think it was pretty funny how on 3 different occasions they used the same transition to move the plot. And that was, hey, can we go talk somewhere private?
Mm-hmm.
Like in Dawi, we have to go somewhere private for your ears only. And then Marcus was like, hey, I'm going to send you my little pendant so we can meet somewhere private. So I can then ask you to go somewhere private so we can have this conversation.
Well, no, they needed to meet up with that airplane mechanic from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I know. Yep. Back him into the jet.
Right.
I really want to hear about your Londo things. Let's just talk about the whole breakup. Let's go through and talk about the breakup.
Okay. I mean, again, this was written in the tea leaves. Londo's been real squeamish about what's going on with the shadows for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I still say Londo's gone full on bad guy. Regardless of how squeamish he is, he used these guys knowing full well what they would do. Like the first time I could almost forgive him because he didn't exactly know what they were going to do.
Yeah.
He knew what they were going to do in taking the Narn homeworld and how that was going to go down. And he said, okay, one last time, let's do it. And he did it. And as much as it bothered him, he's still guilty and he has all that blood on his hands. And we talked about this in the recap. It completely rewrites that Geometry of Shadows episode from season 3,
mm-hmm.
where dude's like, I hear billions crying out and they're your victims. And you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Cool. Not just a throwaway conversation. All that to say, this is the first time I feel like I've seen classic Londo in an entire season.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't see this at all in season 2, not once. This was when he's in that spot where he's like, it's time for us to, to say goodbye. And he's like, oh, one more thing, we've got some bookkeeping we got to take care of. And he goes, fine, I'll meet you in an hour. And then you'll go away. And I'm like, yes, like that's the Londo that I want to play in the reboot of Babylon 5. You know what I mean? Like, yes, that's the man. They go through, they're like, hey, we need, we're going to take out this Zagros 7. I'm a little confused about what his whole thing is with Lord Rifa, because like in a little bit, it kind of seems like he's like, oh, you want to disassociate yourself from us, fine, but we're going to still hang out with Lord Rifa and be associated with the Centauri.
He's totally dating the sister. That's all it is. Oh, we're breaking up? That's fine, because
I'm just going to talk to them. And I'll go around you and you'll lose your status or you'll whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was the other side of like, listen, you stay on your side of the line, we'll stay on our side of the line, but we need this one little piece that happens to be on your side of the line, which I don't understand why they just didn't draw the line with a little hook. A little loop, like just do that. But clearly that particular world, it was just about getting the Rangers off of that world,
mm-hmm.
which I'm just now putting this together in my mind as I'm talking about this. Delenn keeps saying the shadows don't need to know that we know that they're coming so we can assemble our forces, and they're actively pursuing a training base of their forces.
Yeah, they totally know.
They absolutely know what's happening.
But also, I think I got some hints in this one that the Rangers aren't this new idea, and they're not really quite as secret as I think we were led to believe they are. Like, there are multiple training facilities.
Mm-hmm.
The Minbari negotiated with other governments to find a place to put their training facilities. So, like, these are real high-level conversations happening about special forces training camps. Marcus's brother joined, and it was like, come and join the Rangers. Just like me. No, I'm going to go work on a mine. And then he died in some mystery shadow attack that we've never heard of. Was it a Narn mine that he was working at? Or have the shadows attacked other places? But I just really got this feeling like the Rangers are this thing that's been around for a long time. Maybe they just added the human element or they added the something else. But so for the shadows, it'd literally be like, I don't know, some other country scouting up the United States and being like, oh, they've got Navy SEALs. Look at that. We've had him for a long time.
So there's clearly been skirmishes and attacks and things like that have happened between the Rangers and the Shadows. So
yeah,
they obviously know something. Anyway, the thing that really sticks out to me about Londo is what's his name? Indawi,
yeah.
Indawi. He comes to talk to him, and he talks about his vision. Okay, which one? Time out on that. We've heard a lot about Londo's visions.
Mm-hmm.
What is Londo, a telepath, or is he a soothsayer, a future seer? Are all Centauri future seers? Like,
well, I think this was.
What's the deal with Londo specifically on this?
I think it was either the Gathering or Midnight on the Firing Line. I forget which one, but they kind of covered every Centauri sees their death. Like they and so he's seen the sequence of events that lead to his death. But what we learned in Signs and Portents from Lady Ladira was that they see possible futures. So they see their possible death. Because to me, we do hear about the vision a lot. We hear about him and Jacquard strangling each other to death.
But we also hear about the hand coming out of the sky.
And all these other pieces.
Yeah.
But I think if I know I'm going to die with this dude strangling me, dude, I'm going to be a superhero and be able to do anything because I know I'm not going to die until this happens. Unless that's just what my current path is that I'm going to die on. So I think every Centauri has a piece of that kind of future scene, at least just to them and their end.
Right. But I feel like Londo is more than that. Like as Lady Ladira was more than just, I can sort of see my death and the path that's on. Like she could feel the vibration. She could sense.
Do you think, because now we know Ivanova is a telepath.
Yeah.
And we have indication, maybe possibly Londo is too. You might not get the reference. Somebody will. Is this Knights of the Old Republic 2 where all the party members can be trained as Jedi? Is that what this is? Like they're all telepaths and that's the end that we learn?
I like to think that we're all latent Jedi. So I floated a whole thing that all muggles are still latent wizards. And with the proper stuff that can be pulled out. Anyway, that's a whole different situation. Get back to Londo. So he has this vision of the ships flying over Alpha Centauri or Centauri Prime or whatever he's called. And they're just blackening the sky. And Jeff, I don't know about you. I could think of nothing else but the scenes where we saw on Cardassia Prime, the Dominion ships flying over. And I'm like, that's the same situation is what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
If you compare the Shadows to the Dominion from this other world across the wormhole, whatever, out of hyperspace, they're coming in to basically take over. They're sending their people. They're going to flood the area. Their home base is on that planet right over there that they have formed an unholy alliance with them, as the Cardassians did with the Dominion, as the Centauri now have with the Shadows. Oh, wait, apparently Earth has too. More on that later. Here's the question. I don't know if this is under the same reference or if this is a new reference altogether. Is Londo the Gul Dukat of this show? Is Londo the guy who is the villain, but at times he's a sympathetic villain that you see some hope for and you're like, wow, this guy actually, he could be a good guy. Like he could have some good parts to him. And I kind of see where he's coming from. I kind of feel for him, but no, he's just a villain and he's made his bed and he's going to have to lie in it. Now, obviously, those paths are different and probably where they wind up is different. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe this winds up with the death of Londo. And that's how the story ends.
We said it just a week ago that Londo is irredeemable at this point. But I'm still Luke Skywalker, hoping to see that little bit of good. I think that maybe he's the Damar of the Centauri, right? Who just doing his job, gets full on evil, does this, and then realizes, oh no. That's the hopeful part of me.
Well, Damar also was a drunk. So
yeah. Lines up.
And a lot of times it was said that Casey Biggs, the guy who played Damar in Deep Space Nine, talks about how Damar's drinking was just because he had a guilty conscience. It wasn't because he was actually like addicted. It was just what he did to numb the conscience, the pain of the conscience. Yeah.
I didn't do this math till just now, but I had a note that there was a scene with him and Londo and Indawi when he was asking about stuff and, welcome. Can I get you a drink? Oh, nope, I'm on duty. Oh, joy is a duty to the Centauri. We have to enjoy it and do it. But now, like, Londo's always drank, and he used to drink other people's drinks, you know, when he was at the bar. But now he's even day drinking while he's at work, while he's negotiating. I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, like, he's looking for excuses to numb the pain.
Yeah. DeMar is probably a much better example at this point from the information we have than a Gul Dukat.
And I think the other piece to that, to write on the same reference, is the Dominion ultimately used Cardassia and had no intention of actually elevating them to equal footing. And that's what led to the resistance and them ultimately winning. When Morden and Londo are going over the custody paperwork, essentially, he makes that comment that, hey, we both know what promises and treaties mean. That's a big statement right there. And so to me, I was like, is this foreshadowing the shadows turning on the Centauri?
Absolutely. I think 100, I had that as a note here. 100% the shadow are turning on the Centauri. And I think Londo even sees it now.
Yeah.
I think he understands that possibility. And you got Rifa over here still, dancing with him.
And that's kind of that big tentacle energy that Morden brings to the table. Literally. Because you ask, like, why bother going through the PowerPoint of you get this, you get that if you're already in bed with Lord Rifa? Here's why. Because he's literally showing Londo, look what we're about to do to you. Go ahead and carve this out. We're going to take this right next to you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's my big Londo. That's I think the glasses I'm viewing Londo through right now.
I was pretty surprised at how open he was about his vision within Dawi. I feel like if some random special intelligence person showed up at my apartment and asked me about a thing I saw in my dream, I probably wouldn't be the first thing out of my mouth. But then you have to ask yourself, why? Why would Londo be so open with it, other than reminding us as the viewer of his vision? I feel like maybe it was a cry for help. Like he's telling, hey, here's somebody that I've got a treaty with, a bit of an alliance, and I can tell you I've seen this thing. Do you have anything for me? Any help? Anything? I don't know. I feel like for me, season 3 is going to be a lot of digging for hopes of redemption for Londo. Because you're right, we got to see that glimpse of regular Londo again, and I miss him.
Yes. Londo, I mean, I miss Londo and Jakar, two guys in a room talking, who utterly hate each other, barbing back and forth. It was golden TV, and these two have been separated for an entire season.
It's been painful.
It really, like,
the closest we got was in Now for a Word, when they were in different places saying the same things, but and they still that relationship transcended that and was awesome.
Right.
But that's the only bit we got.
It makes you wonder what the actors, Andreas and Peter, who clearly had such a chemistry, and you're like, these two guys go out to dinner every Friday night together, and like they're bringing wives home to each other's houses, for dinners and whatnot. And like these guys are just gold together. What was that like for them going through season 2, where honestly, they weren't even on the call sheet together most of the time? So that's my whole thing with Londo. Do you want to talk about the ending?
Yeah.
While we're still talking about the shadows, because the big reveal of this episode, the shadows are on Earth, having formed an alliance with Earth, who, by the way, has also formed an alliance with Centauri, which we know that they were talking about it in the last couple of episodes from season 2. We get confirmation that treaty has been signed and is now fully in place. But Psycop is there, Morden is there, Earth Force Senator is there, in the capital of the world, which is in Geneva. Okay. I mean, I'm not appalled. I'm just, did we know this before this moment?
The Geneva?
Yeah.
The Geneva thing? Yeah. Yeah, that came, I think I knew that for sure in And Now for a Word.
Okay.
I think.
I wasn't too far along then.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple things that stood out to me here. One, like the fact, so that she's like, oh, only the Narns are the only one that know anything about you. And Morden's like, yeah. And it looks like we solved that problem. It's almost like all of this war and all this death and destruction was literally to silence the one group that could speak out against them.
That's a fair point I hadn't thought about, because the Narn have the Book of Jaquan.
Mm-hmm.
they have the history here that was written down, and Jakar said it. The Book of Jaquan is painstakingly copied. Every line, every tittle, every slash, every ink drop that got spilled while they were moving the deal. Like it is precisely copied from the original Book of Jaquan, which, by the way, I need the prequel. I want that's, if we don't get Babylon 5 the reboot, I want the Jaquan story, like the original, because Jakar says, he's like, before we went to the stars, set it on Narn. They're not spacefaring yet, and the shadows come out, and he leads this big revolt and becomes a spiritual leader. And
they had very little to do with the shadows. He's like, yeah, we didn't engage with them. They didn't bother with us. They were fighting some wars somewhere else. They just used our southern continent, which also, oh my God, so they went and they took the Narn homeworld.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a Centauri thing. Are the shadows reestablishing on that southern continent?
Did they leave something behind on the southern continent that they can just like, hey, let's go turn that base back on?
Yeah, go back and do it. And I go back to, I can't remember the episode, but we talked about it in Confessions and Lamentations, how the Markab had mirrored, like they had memories of Jakar's story and the Narn story. Did they have a base on the Markab homeworld? And somehow the disease is tied. Like, was that their bio-warfare thing? And now they've cleared out the Markab so they can have a base on Markab. They have their base on Zahadum. They have their base on Narn. Like, they're totally reestablishing
and
themselves.
Now a base on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in for a base on Earth.
The other thing on the Earth thing I thought was fascinating, and it's just one little quick thing where the Cyclops says, because Morden's like, hey, this is just, we can just say it's a rumor thing, whatever, brush it under the carpet. And the Cyclops like, well, I don't know. People are pretty freaked out. I feel like we could use this for our program.
To accelerate the program.
Yeah.
Speed up the program, he said.
The program, like whatever that is. But Morden says, interesting, and then moves on. I feel like, and then I know you've got more to talk about on the program, so I'll let you go there. But I feel like we had that one episode with the Lumati who thought humans are so great because look how terribly you treat your poor. Now we have the shadows, one of the most ancient evils to ever exist. And they're impressed at the evil and the conniving and the conspiracy weaving that the Psychor is doing. He's like, oh, that's interesting. Look how debased humanity is.
So two thoughts. One, we've been talking about there being these different fronts of enemies, right? There's the shadows. That's the big bad guy. But there's also Home Guard. There's also Psychor. And there's also whatever President Clark is into, which we are tying to Home Guard more than we are Psychor. There's the Uprising on Mars, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Ministry of Peace. That's the new one that's come in.
Yep.
What if they are all in league with each other and they're actually the same threat?
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
I mean, that's what we got out of this episode, right?
Mm-hmm. It's all orchestrated.
It's all one thing. So what is the program? You got your red yarn?
Okay, let's do it.
Hey, listen, folks out there listening, you guys out there watching in YouTube land, this is one of my things. So you guys are either going to laugh at me or you're going to pee your pants as far as how close I am. Don't tell me either way. Just laugh or pee your pants. So here we go. We know Psychor is wanting to breed telepaths, right? We know that Psychor is wanting to make them stronger. They're wanting to get them so high and whatever, right? Now, I floated the idea, what if it's to get them ascended to become shadows or something of that nature, right? And I started thinking and I went, well, what if actually what they're trying to do is do what is going on with the human Minbari souls? Because we talked about how the human Minbari souls, like humans are starting to be inhabited by these Minbari souls that are disappearing, right? And I thought for a moment, I don't think this is the case. What if the telepaths are the humans who have been embodied with the Minbari souls? I don't think that's the case. But what if there is this deal? Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to get humanity to a spot via the Psychor that they can receive these shadow ghost figures. Because remember, we saw Morden talking to the ghost things. What if they can attach themselves to the people? And it's about getting them to basically be these super soldiers that they can then download their consciousness into right? You know, you smell what I'm cooking here?
Yeah.
That the whole Psy-Corps program, this program he's talking to, we could use this to accelerate the program. We can't let any latent telepath get out there. We've got to collect them all because we've got to build up this base for the shadows to come in and take over their bodies in order to wage war and finally win this decisive battle and set ourselves up as the gods of the universe. And think about it from the human standpoint, right? Or from I hate to say human because it's human. I don't want the humans to be the bad guys. But what's one way we can just go dominate the entire universe out there? By teaming up with these guys?
Yeah.
And we're going to merge forces, and in doing so, we get to go rule the whole dang galaxy? I personally don't care to rule an entire galaxy. That just seems like a lot of work.
But it seems like something a Psy-Corps would want to do.
So that's my thought right now, trying to piece what they are all doing together. And I really wonder if Psy-Corps is trying to develop bodies for the shadows to come and inhabit.
In sci-fi, a lot of times we talk about what's humanity's role. What does humanity bring? And Delenn has talked about that. They have the capacity to be the greatest of us. But if you have the capacity to be the greatest, you also have the capacity to be the worst. And so maybe we're like this, I don't know if genetic is the right word, but we're this some sort of, thing that can connect with the Minbari and become like a force for good and light as a Minbari. Or you can connect with the shadows and become a force for bad and evil. Here I go.
Or connect with the Vorlons.
Yep. I was going to say, so the Vorlons are the perfect question for how do they reproduce? Or do they? Do they reproduce by essentially subsuming some other species that they've, maybe spent an entire millennia building them up to believe that there's some sort of I can strain myself so everyone sees me as an angel or a god or a holy being, so that when I do show up, I can just, kind of.
Jeff, how much of human history, of religious history, and I'm not just speaking of one religion, think of all the religions throughout human history, have dealt, particularly Greek and Roman, have dealt with the gods mating with humans and having offspring.
Right, it's Hercules. It's Wonder Woman.
It's Maui.
Yeah, it's
right.
These are all the stories we still tell, and so I think that's a great example. I think another one is in Mass Effect, where the Reaper. That's always Mass Effect for me, but the Reapers actually they consume the races to create more of them. That's how they reproduce, and I think you're onto something. And humanity is that magic key that anything can match up to, whether it's a Minbari soul, a Vorlon, or a first one, or the ancient ones or the shadows can utilize humanity to be the next version of them. And so it's not just the prophecy of the darkness and the light coming together or whatever it was. Like the Minbari prophecy is literally the battle happens in the human soul. That's the final battlefield is humanity, our hearts, our minds, and our souls.
Jeff, if that's where we're going, I mean, this is a Star Trek message all the way through. I mean, that's it. Like, it's the battle for the best of us. It's the battle for who we are. Like, my gosh, like this is where new Trek, I think, is going in a lot of cases.
Totally.
You want to talk about the new guy?
Yeah, let's talk about the new guy and the Rangers. We learned a lot.
We learned a lot. Yeah, learned a lot about the Rangers. Ivanova already knew everything about the Rangers, which was awesome.
Of course she does. Like,
right?
That's such a great scene. She's like, of course I know these things. It's my job to know these things, so I know them.
And the day that I don't know something, that's when you should worry. Like, I just know everything. So here's a question. Did Sinclair contact her and we just didn't see it?
Oh, that would have been cool.
Or was she just in CNC when those messages were being relayed and she was just like, hey, what are you watching right now? Oh, hey, it's my dude.
That was my question, is if she could piece it together, who else is piecing it? And does that person who can piece it together get paid 50 credits a week to wear a Night Watch armband?
Oh, yeah.
That could blow up.
Yes. So new guy comes in. All right. Let's place an over under. Kefir was at 6 episodes. He was in the opening credits, forced upon them by the studio. I don't know that Marcus Cole was forced upon them by the studio. I don't know what his deal is. Folks, I don't really care right now. We'll talk about that much later. Over under on Marcus Cole, number of episodes that he is in. I'm going to set that number. Let's hear. Keffer was at 6. I'm going to set the number at 9. Are you taking the over? Or are you taking the under? That's pretty low.
Yeah, I'll take the under, though.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm totally taking the over.
I don't think he got signed to a 50% deal. I doubt he's even getting paid for 11 episodes.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Even though he's in the opening credits now.
Natoth was in the opening credits last season, and she was in it twice.
It's fair.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in the opening credit. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so these are people that got a set deal. They're getting paid for 6, for 9, for 11, for 12. Yeah.
I was also going to say, I happen to know that Marcus Cole has an action figure that I now have, but Natoth does as well. So, so you take the under. You're taking the under.
To be clear, I'm taking the under for this season.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I think he's going to last. I think we will see him through the end. I think he's a long term for us.
Okay, fair enough. I'll even take that. Jeff, we need to revisit this. I don't know where we put notes for the season recap, which is in 6 months from now, but we need to revisit how many episodes Marcus Cole is in this season.
We could start the note. Normally we start the note 2 weeks ahead of time. Maybe we could be a little ahead of it this time around.
So yeah, I'm going to place the over under at 9, and I'm going to take the over. You're going to take the under.
Yeah,
I do think
works.
I think he's going to show up more than we think he's going to, but I like this guy. We've talked about him. He is a bad A fighter. He pulls out that stick and it goes shoom, shoom on each side of it. And Delenn apparently has one as well, or he gave her his, or
that whole scene was great. I mean, that's
the best fight scene I've seen in Babylon 5.
Totally. Lanier, we've seen him in action before. Delenn, holy crud. And then you add in Marcus, and those poor guys didn't have it. I mean, that was awesome. And you knew as soon as he stood up to him, you're just like, oh, dude, this is not going to end well for you.
What did he say to him? He's like, I don't like being disappointed or made fun of or something. He's like, funny, with somebody who looks like you, I thought you'd be used to it. Whatever it was he said. You're like, dude, you're about to kick his butt. You know it's about to happen. Delenn can fight too, man. Like she's no joke either. She's not somebody to be trifled with either.
They did a great job blocking the shots too. You got a lot of face, like of Delenn throwing kicks and doing things. I wonder if Mira Furlan has some, stunt background or anything, because she was doing stuff that was really, really well done.
Did we know about the jewel? Like, have we seen that more, that's a marker for the Rangers? What do you think about the jewel and the story that Marcus told about the jewel?
I thought it was a neat story, but I also liked Marcus's reaction to the story. Delenn's like, do you believe that? And he's like, I don't believe in miracles anymore. I've been around too long. You
liked that reaction because it's a philosophy you personally ascribe to, or you just like the fact that he had that as his reaction?
It's the same reaction I had to it, really. It's like, oh, that's a great story that you quench the fire in these different things. Cool. Oh, and this happens when a ranger dies. All right, that's a great story. Maybe it motivates some of you. For me, it's just a neat story. There's probably a shop on Minbar pumping them out. You can buy them on the Zocalo store, or not.
5 for $1.
But maybe you can. All I know is there are multiple ranger training facilities, which was mind blowing to me. Like,
they weren't just on Babylon 5. The idea that there was rangers not on Babylon 5 was blowing my mind.
Really? So I feel like when Sinclair introduced them, we knew there were some on Babylon 5 and we knew there were some out about, like they were his eyes and his ears out and about. But I got the impression that they were like a real quiet, like ninja group that nobody knew about and pretty small. And we're working on working together. We're holding trust meetings and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then like, oh, we got a training facility on Minbar. We got one on this Zagros 7 that the Drazi are like actively involved with helping us with. How many of these things are there? How many? I don't know. I totally thought the Rangers were this little thing that were going to become, small but mighty, but apparently they're all over the place.
Well, and I thought it was all Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who started them all, and he's got this running and he's working to get and who knows what Sinclair is actually up to. We know he's out there somewhere doing something, right?
Yeah.
But who really
and he's on
knows?
Minbar leading the stuff. And the thing is, like, if Marcus's brother was a ranger way back and got killed in some attack. That Sinclair episode was like 6 months ago in the timeline of Babylon 5. That's not time for dude to die, you to get trained as a ranger. Come on. What more is there?
Do you get the idea that his brother was a better fighter than he is? Because this guy's pretty good. Like, little brother might be better than bigger brother, just be honest with you.
But he's got that whole thing too where like, I don't know if he like died, he shut off life support so he can live on next to zero, air or whatever. And then as soon as Franklin turns his back, he does the smartest thing any patient of Franklin's can do. And that is get the hell out of med bay or med lab.
Yeah, because Franklin might try to kiss you.
Yeah, or kill you. One of the two. Like, it's not going to be a good ending.
Or save your life when you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
He'll force his way on you, whatever he thinks is best.
One way or the other.
Or he'll put you on a diet. So that scene, by the way, I totally thought Franklin was going to get shanked.
Same. Totally.
Like they were setting that up. They were blocking it. The camera was like, Franklin's about to go down. Jeff, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed that he didn't.
I was actually mad that he was calling for help. Like he calls up, I need you up here. Oh, is it urgent? Nah. Like this thing's just literally beneath me and I need someone else to handle it because I'm better than dealing with this. And so as that was, I'm like, come on, just yank him around the throat. Just knock him down.
To be fair, I think he was just busy moving into his new digs and he was just assigning the thing to somebody else.
Did MedLab get destroyed last week? Like,
no, I think we just got some more money between season 2 and season 3 and they built a new set.
Okay. Yeah. I kept saying, I'm like, why is there?
You got the one line of like, yeah, this place is better than the last one. Okay, cool.
All right, great. What happened to the old one? We'll probably never find out.
Maybe it did get destroyed in the Centauri attack.
That's the only thing I can think of.
That is entirely possible. Hey, by the way, so a week ago, they've already fixed the fin on the outside that got blown off. They're clearly still cleaning up some parts of the station, but mostly everything's back to where it's supposed to be. That's a pretty good repairs process.
For a station that a year ago was having strikes and union and labor issues and everything, they are a well-oiled machine at this point.
Well, and I mean, budget issues and resource, getting resources and stuff, like they just have an extra fin that they can go replace up there. Like, did they duct tape it back together? Like, what'd they do?
Well, maybe they got some extra money from the Minbari, because I mean, apparently they have so much money, they can go and develop an entire like experimental spaceship thing. And, Grey Council and everybody doesn't even know that it's happening.
That's not what they said. That's
not everybody.
She said not everybody on the Grey Council knows, which means some do. So what does this tell us about the Grey Council? There's a division in the council, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to hear more about that because we've tracked this, right? There's an imbalance of power in the Grey Council now. Some people within the Grey Council I'm going to go back to dude from the Grey Council came and gave Delenn the triluminary that helped her build the cocoon or the chrysalis or whatever you want to call it so that she could turn into a butterfly with hair.
Yep.
Yay, hi.
But then at the same time, the Grey Council yelled at her and chastised her for turning into a butterfly with human hair.
So there's something going on there. And we heard Old Draw say that, he doesn't recognize Minbar anymore. Stuff's going on in Minbar. Like what the heck's going on? So there's stuff happening on Minbar they're not exploring yet in this show. And I really need them to explore it.
They keep dropping these little pieces. Cause I that was my big thought on the whole. I'm like, that ship must have cost a fortune to build. How do you not see that? How do you not?
Because the Minbari are a post-scarcity society who don't actually deal with money unless they're dealing with outside forces.
I mean, after all, they've had artificial gravity for some time.
Right, 2 or 3. That's my third.
No, it's actually your 2 because the other one you got to ride for quite a while. I think
you let me ride it.
One left.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do think that just straight up calling it the White Star, this is where it's all going to come to a head. Is Naroon is going to hear that name and he is going to lose his freaking mind. That's to me, that is such I get it. They're trying to reconcile Starkiller Sheridan with now Ranger Leader Sheridan, but to a dude like Naroon, that is not going to fly.
No, but I love the connection you made there. The Black Star, the Star Killer. Now this is the White Star and Sheridan's in control. He's going to turn into the White Knight.
It acknowledges that redemption that you and I have talked about, where like the Minbari, Delenn specifically, and her faction are like, you are redeemed now and you're going to do great things. Yeah, you did this horrible thing, to us in war where that's what you do, but like you're good now.
Where we were kicking your butts and you were fighting back, but we're going to hold that against you. Okay.
Yeah.
And don't forget, there is something incredibly special about Sheridan himself, right? This is what made Kosh get out of his suit and go rescue. If that had been anyone else, Kosh would have let that dude smash into obliterated pieces, and Filch is going to have to go clean him up off the hole.
Those CGI guys putting the tracks back together would have been having little magic erasers.
Oh, absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, they'd have been. Yeah, they would have been just picking up little bits of whoever that person was.
Well, I think we saw so much of what makes Sheridan special on the White Star, and it was the comparison between him and Delenn, right? So like they're on the bridge, and Delenn is freaking out. Oh my God, it's the shadows. We're not ready. We can't do this. And Sheridan's like, well, we're gonna have to, so let's do it. And she's panicked, losing her mind the whole time. And he's literally like, hey, what's the craziest thing we can do here? And let's just make that happen. Like, whatever, let's get in. So you've got Delenn, who's like the reserved, quiet. Oh, I'm a little nervous about on paper, there's no way we can win this fight. So let's not even do it. And Sheridan's like, yeah, you can always win, In fact, I'll use a Rush quote. You can fight without ever winning, but you can never, ever win without a fight. From their song Resist. It's beautiful. 1995's Test for Echo. 1996's Test for Echo.
I loved Sheridan on board this starship.
He was in his element, man. He was loving it.
You said I had one more.
You have one more. Yeah.
Okay. Sheridan in command of the White Star after one episode is better than Sisko in command of the Defiant. He was smart. He was strategic. When he sat back and he's like, yeah, go to the nearest jump gate. We can form our own jump point. Yeah, but I don't want them to know that yet. And now we're going to be in the thing. Hey, we're going to form our own jump gate inside the open jump gate. And it's going to crush the shadow ship that we have no chance of destroying otherwise. Cool. Let's try that.
When he even asked Lanier, he's like, hey, can this thing outrun like the blast from that thing? And Lanier's like, well, I don't know. Maybe. It's good enough for me. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. It was just so great. By the way, Bill Mumy, I loved his acting at the very end of this episode where the whole thing happens and he's sitting there like he's kind of out of breath and he's sitting down and like, are you okay? And he's like, in training in Temple, they didn't tell us that we could do this. And when I get back home, I'm going to make a few recommendations. And that moment right after he says it, where he just like, his eyes sort of like this, like, oh boy, like that whole acting moment, I was like, I could feel what he was feeling in that moment because of how he's doing it. It was so good. And I'm so glad that Lanier has become more than just the quiet, reserved little attaché to the ambassador, that he is a fully involved member of this cast now. He's not just the kid from Lost in Space. He is this guy.
Hey, dove right in. Hey, they don't speak your language. I got you. Cool. We're good. Yeah. So they get back from the White Star, which I'm guessing is like often some undisclosed part of space with the religious people just keeping it floating around.
I think it's just hiding somewhere. Like it's in the bat cave of space.
Yeah.
They've got a space for it out there.
Ready at a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm. They just got to get to it.
They come in and then Sheridan forms his war council.
That's a cool thing. I know that happened in this episode, but I feel like that happened last season already as well.
Really?
Was there something similar to this from last season? Like the General Haig thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So he brought the Earth Force people when you think about it, and even when I was taking my notes, like the first thing I wrote was all the people who know about the shadows, the Rangers, and the Earth stuff. Yeah, I didn't say anything about the Earth stuff. That's still its own little separate group that's also a part of this group.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting. Like, great idea. I made the joke in the recap about, hey, there are no ground rules except this one rule. I'm just like, dude, that's literally a ground. Okay, whatever. I get it. You're creating a psychologically safe space in the 90s. That's advanced and great of you. Awesome. But he makes a comment where he says, this is made up of the people who are aware of the shadows and the Rangers. And I'm hoping to add more people eventually. Who are those other people?
As they find out more humans that have Minbari souls or Minbari. That's an interesting group. Who are the Minbari that are joining the Rangers?
We saw a couple hanging out, and comes the Inquisitor or whatever when but but nobody of note. Like,
No,
it's all
but
been
like
humans.
But on Mimbar, in this whole group, who are like, Mom, Dad, I think I'm going to go join this Rangers group over here. Like, are they recruiting them out of high school, out of Temple? Like, who are these guys? You know, are they some resistance group on their world? Because we know not all's right on Mimbar.
So Brent, well, we've reached that part of the episode now where we boil it all down. We see if this show has any of that Star Trek-y quality to it, like a deep moral message, holding up a mirror to society, giving us hope that we will or that we can be better in the future. We're going to do this with me rating this on a scale of 0 to 5 deltas as to how Star Trek-y it is. I'm saying Star Trek-y because we're not saying how Star Trek it is. It's just a label for all the cool things sci-fi does. And Brent, you're going to rate this on an episode of 0 to 5 Star Furies as to how much we enjoyed the episode and how Babylon 5 the episode was. So I'll go first on the deltas. And I'll tell you, when I first watched this episode, a couple things stood out to me, but it was hard to dig through them. It took my second watch through to really get to it. But there really was a Star Trek-y message to it. And the 2 points that come to mind is Sheridan taking responsibility for the Rangers' well-being. There's the scene where, like, hey, we got to go do this. We have a VIP on the station and we got to sneak behind him and go. And he says, when I assumed shared leadership of this group, I assumed responsibility for their well-being. That's leadership at its finest, right? An effective leader will always do what needs to be done to make sure that the people that they work with are taken care of. Now, this is how Jeff Akin, watches Star Trek, right? I look for those leadership points, but to me, that's what Star Trek is about, is creating better leaders to move us into that future. But if you're not a leadership nerd like I am, the core message still applies and it pervades the whole episode. Take your responsibility seriously, right? Do the things that you've committed to do, even if it jeopardizes you in your career. Like, imagine if it wasn't cool, the cool dude, Ndawi, who was so cool and so just a dude doing his job. He wasn't being a jerk like everybody else. But imagine if Ben Zane was there, or Captain Pierce was on there, or even Lawyer Natoth was there doing the thing. There would be hell to pay for him coming in, but he still would have done it because that's what you do to take care of your people. There's another message. It's not as prevalent through the episode, but it's a line that Delenn says when they're talking about the shadow ship with Ndawi. And that's where she's saying the ships are indestructible. Sheridan says, I don't believe that. Like, every ship has a weakness. Like, we can do this. And she says, believe what you will until experience changes your mind. What I thought was cool, it is in the storyline, is it changed her mind. She saw a shadow ship get destroyed. So you can read whatever you want. You can take whatever college classes you want, watch whatever YouTube videos, do whatever research on your own and learn about a thing. But until you do the thing, until you see the thing, you never truly actually know. And the flip side to that, the Star Trek message to it that's more implied by me than anything, is that we have to keep our mind open to those changes. When we see something that's against what we've learned through the book learning or whatever, we have to be open to questioning that because we saw something different. I think there's some really good messages in it, but while one of them kind of pervaded, the other one didn't. I'm going to give this one 3 deltas.
I like it. I really like that message of take responsibility for what you've committed to. It seems like if I could pinpoint that particular one, that's a next generation message,
very much
all
so.
the way through. Right. I like it. Okay. Let's talk about Star Furies then. How Babylon 5 is this episode? Because Babylon 5 is its own deal, right? How much did we like this episode? I liked this episode quite a bit. Am I going to look back on this episode and say this is one of my favorite episodes of Babylon 5 ever? Is it one of my favorite episodes of the season? Probably not. This very much seemed to be just like, it's another episode, but it moved everything like in the right ways, in the right direction. Like there was nothing veiled, at least as far as we could see. Or if there was stuff that was veiled, there was also plenty of stuff that was clear and out front, Mm-hmm. I enjoyed this episode. This is an episode that I absolutely will watch every single time it comes on a rewatch. I'm flipping through the channels. If I see this episode on, I'm stopping to watch it. I'm not changing the channel until it gets to a commercial. And then I'm changing back as soon as I think 3.5 minutes have passed, because I'm back to watching this episode. It's not mind blowing, right? But it moves everything where it needs to go. So I'm going to give this one, Jeff, it's taken everything within me not to say 5 Star Furies.
I know.
I don't know that it's a 5 Star Fury episode, so I'm gonna say 4. I think this is a solid 4 Star Fury episode, and I'm gonna put a little asterisk because it could be more, but I don't. I'm trying to combat against recency bias. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, when I think about the 5 Star Fury episodes that we've seen, they have been massive. Like they either had like Confessions and Lamentations is a great example where it just had such a punch you in the face message. Like, oh my gosh, this was huge. Or it was a big thing like the Long Twilight Struggle where like, oh my God, it was huge. I think 5 Star Furies is a high bar, just as 5 Deltas is a high bar. And yeah, this was a great episode. I loved this episode. I was so refreshed to talk about recency bias. I was so refreshed to watch this episode, but I think 4 Star Furies is really fair.
This one should not wind up in the top 5 of our ranking by the end of the season. Like I would hope there are other episodes that are so much better than this one.
Well, that's a fun thing we get to do right now because just like last season, we are creating the 100% absolutely accurate and definitive ranking of the 3rd season of Babylon 5. We did this in season 1 and the wrap up. We did it through the season. In season 2, we're going to do the same here in season 3. It may not end as a top 5 episode, but Brent, where do you place Matters of Honor in season 3 so far?
Well, out of 22 episodes, this is the number 1 episode, Jeff.
It is.
It's the only one, but it is the number 1. So I currently place it at number 1. And you know what this one doesn't do? Remember that episode last season? Was it The Long Dark or Distant Star? And it was one of those two that were like, hey, whatever other numbers there are, like we'll leave the blank ones and then this one goes down at the bottom. Like this doesn't do that. This is clearly a number 1 episode right now. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And you can't fight me on it because that's how the game works.
That's right. I cannot. It's your rank to put it there. And you know what? I'm very tempted to argue this one's strong, but you know, Points of Departure stayed in the top position for quite a while. I stayed in the top 5 for a lot longer than 5 weeks. That was it's a good episode. I'm going to be interested to see how this one fares through the rest of the season.
I think it's just going to depend on the quality of the other episodes around it. You know, if this season goes like season 2, and I'll be very upset if it does. But if it goes like season 2, where remember we got to the end and we looked at it, half the season was not good and half the season was really good. I really hope that more than half the season is really good. I can forgive it if 1 or 2 episodes is a little, but for the most part, I now expect to see everything really top notch.
Well, that's it for Matters of Honor. Next week, we're going to be watching Convictions for the next time. We've never seen these episodes before. We haven't looked ahead. We haven't read any synopses. We haven't looked at thumbnails or anything. So based on the title alone, we like to guess what we think the episode is going to be about. So Brent, what do you think is going to happen next week on Convictions?
So Convictions, when you talk about convictions, you're talking about people sticking to their guns about something, right?
It's a type of conviction, yeah.
Right. I don't think this is like a judicial conviction. Although it could be, I guess. But I'm going to say
the
this,
ombuds.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's that. I think this is people sticking to their guns. I'm sensing a Franklin episode, as much as I hate to say it. Maybe Garibaldi, maybe Ivanova. I do think it's one of our core human people. I think the ambassadors are missing from this one, like Londo, Jakar, Kosh, Delenn may or may not be, and she's kind of Sheridan's girl right now, so she may pop up here and there, but I don't think she's the focus of the episode, even if she does show up in it. I'm leaning towards Franklin. You know, it could. Oh, I know what it is. I know exactly what it is, Jeff.
Oh no. Okay.
The Great Egg people are back.
Oh God, that'd be amazing.
This is the episode. This is the episode, and here's what it is, Jeff. No, I'm going to combine it with the other side of Convictions. Okay, this is why it's plural, because it's not just one conviction; it's convictions. Franklin has to deal with the fallout of what he did to that boy. And so maybe it's like new patients from the Great Egg people are on board and they've heard of him. And now he's like this big evil guy and they're afraid and he has to stand by his convictions, but people are like judging him or maybe, Jeff, I hope this is the episode. I hope that, because I love shows that do this. Deep Space Nine did it. Stargate SG-1 did it. One of those shows that everybody does it. The government of the Great Egg people have shown up on Babylon 5 to extradite Franklin to stand trial for what he did to that boy. and Franklin has to stand by his conviction while they are trying to get a conviction. That's what this episode should be about.
Sinclair comes back, and he literally just comes back to say, yes, take him. And if you... I should have got this guy fired.
Sheridan being like, I read that file. Yes, you got him. Go. He's done.
Sinclair should have fired this guy. I want that to be the episode so bad. That's not all what I made the note here. I think it's going to be about. I think we're going to get a sidekicks episode.
Oh, cool. I'm with that.
I think it's going to come down to Veer is going to have to make a choice. This is where he's going to start like actively helping the Narn resistance. And he's going to be in a couple situations where he risks getting caught, but does it anyway because he has, convictions about stuff. Maybe we get some more of like his and Lanier's drink dates where they're meeting up for quick drinks. But Brent, we'll find out here next week. Mm-hmm. Thank you everybody so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe as well. Also hit the bell. We will not flood your notifications. We'll make sure you're only getting the good stuff. And if you haven't already, please stop by Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, and we'll be more than happy to share it here on the podcast. So Brent, until next time.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know about you, but I'm getting really sick and tired of all of these people coming into our show and making all these demands in our comment feed.
Dude, where's your sense of mystery? Your sense of adventure?
Are you trying to cheer me up or something? What are you doing?
Never. But I wouldn't even dream of doing that.
Good, because I hate being cheered up. It's depressing.
Then peace and victory. Long life.
It's my first time.
Jeff and I enjoy being married, but not to each other. And I mean, I love you, Jeff.
I was going to say, if you ask that way, like, yes, my wife, she might tell you that we're pretty close to it, but I still love you as well. It's
there
great.
you go. There you go. That's yeah, we like hanging out with our families. And God bless. Hey, if they're ever watching, which I don't know if your wife ever watches, Jeff, mine does not, but should you ever watch either one of our two wives or our children, thanks for letting us do this.
Yeah, totally. It's great.